Hello and welcome to the Impact Lab podcast. I've got an amazing guest with me today, a good friend of mine, Rodwaan Saleh. How are you, Rodwaan? You well?
I'm doing well, Aziz. It's so good to see you
It's
after
so
a
good
long
to see you
time.
too. Before we
Thank you.
start, as is tradition on this podcast, we're going to do the reverse Turing test. So, Rodwaan, where did we first meet?
In Khartoum, in an area called KAFOURI. Yes, where you officed.
Correct, that's correct. And if you are listening to this, you can watch it and see that we are actually human, we're real people, and you can see the reverse Turing test in the show notes. Rodwaan, it's so good to see you again. It's been so long and a lot of trauma and drama in between the last times we met, right?
Yes, the good days.
They were good days. They really were.
Yeah.
So, for people who don't know you, Rodwaan, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what you do?
For the past 25 years, I've worked with nonprofits, either through a volunteer, consultant, or a full-time employee. And I've worked on a slew of projects, from domestic projects to international projects to a real and true global projects. And I feel that whatever I do, it's the minutia of oiling this huge gear that is helping the many needy people around the world.
And you do it incredibly well. And having lived in Sudan, I've seen firsthand the incredible work that NGOs can do.
Correct.
What do you think separates different NGOs and different nonprofits in terms of um the very best ones? How are they able to make such a disproportionate impact on the campaigns that they undertake?
They have to align their mission with what needs to be done on the ground. I feel oftentimes the passion to do something, it is not enough. What separates the giants from anyone else, in my opinion, is how it's done meticulously. Where is the measurable impact and how it's actually achieved? That makes that NGO not only successful, but it truly brings the smile on those who, what we call the beneficiaries. Unfortunately, many organizations don't do that, but the ones that do so, they succeed and they have a huge impact on the beneficiaries.
When you talk about aligning sort of the goals with the practical realities on the ground, like, can you be specific? Like, maybe think of a real example where everything is lined up perfectly from the vision right at the start all the way through to
Correct.
execution and results.
I mean, any NGO could have a vision to eradicate poverty, but that is so vague. You come to a village and you know that you have not only limited resources, but there probably no electricity. So why are you building brick and mortar? Why are you building a school that is made out of bricks? Why can't you build a school that is made from the very material that homes are made of? Just make it bigger. When it comes to extending electricity, what is the sustainability of continuity with that electricity in that village? You don't have an amazing uh, power plant that actually powers electricity in that village. So what you end up doing is you have to improvise either solar panels or perhaps small generators here and there. But unfortunately, organizations come in and they'd like to build a huge conglomerate school while people need to eat. Save that money, find another sustainable project in farming, for example, but then build a school that is big enough to host the students of that village. Again, that goes back into doing analysis studies, going back into truly speaking with the leadership of that very community that you want to serve.
Yeah, I can see how that would happen. That a non-profit comes in with its home country's paradigms and tries to apply those
Correct.
paradigms to the local environment, which just doesn't work. And so, I guess that leads me on to the next question: how important are local partners then when it comes to not just? I'm sure in terms of execution, they're incredibly important, but what about in terms of ideation and strategy?
Aziz, that's extremely important. And I think that's a good question. It's a good segue into what true partnership should be. Oftentimes, when you say partner with another organization is one thing and it has its own shape and form. But I believe if you are going to do any type of humanitarian work in any region, boots on the grounds to get an impactful project on its way, it is the best way to sit down with the locals, get a good feedback, number one. Number two, partner with their leadership and win them to your way of thinking so that they have ownership. Anytime you have a community that has an ownership, they feel pride in accomplishing something that is impactful to their own people. I'll give you an example of an old well. Well, I mean, you want girls not to walk 3 and 4 and 10 miles every other day to go fetch water. So the best way to do is to dig that well. Well, when you talk to anyone else that says, well, you know, they're used to walking the 3 and 4 miles to go get it, but you want them to be educated. The best way is make sure that that well is dug, make sure that that well is actually functioning, but you only hear these solutions by speaking and getting a good feedback from the very local community that you intend to help. So
Yeah, I can see how it would be easy to kind of veer off course and make decisions which you think are sensible
correct.
decisions, and on paper look
Absolutely.
incredibly sensible, but
Absolutely.
in reality they could even be a hindrance. So when you think about
Absolutely.
the NGOs that you work for and have worked for that are successful, and alhamdulillah, mashallah, you've been incredibly
Alhamdulillah.
successful yourself. Um,
Alhamdulillah.
what would you say are, let's say, the top two things that they're doing on a daily basis? That you know, all greatness comes from repeated habits, right? So, what are the habits that NGOs really embed within themselves that allows them and enables their own success?
They have to look at their programs. When I'm donating to that particular organization, I'm donating to see, will they stretch my dollar to benefit the beneficiaries that we intend to help? And so the biggest mistake that many organizations make is that they oftentimes veer away from their programs or their core programs. If they are into education, stick with education and make an impact, regardless and irrespective of the region or regardless and irrespective of the area that you're serving. But then sometimes we veer off and we want to provide water, we want to provide electricity, we want to provide A, B, and C, 1, 2, and 3, and we're building this huge pie in the sky. To me, that's a big mistake. You cannot be all and the one that comes in with a magical wand fixes all the problems in that particular area you're serving. So you have to specialize. And I believe if you look back at your programs and find out your ability to implement these programs into a certain region, into a certain area, you will have an impact. And that brings me to something that I would hope you would ask. Glamorous organizations, they're just glamorous. And they probably are bringing more money, more grants. But I oftentimes find organizations that are not even known. They're making a huge impact because they focused on their program and they know exactly how to implement it. They become experts at.
I love that. I think that's a lesson for most people, let alone organizations, right? If you niche down and
Yes,
focus on what you're great
absolutely.
at, that's where
Absolutely.
you can build. So, uh, following on from that, then, so you've got, let's see, these smaller charities, these smaller NGOs who are, let's say, exceptional at well digging and selecting the right locations and things like that. How can they possibly compete for charity dollars against the larger organizations?
I think once again, they are not prioritizing their own programs. I can talk to you today, Aziz, and I say, look, there is a village somewhere that needs a well dug. And you're going to say, I want to trust you. How much? And I'll say, well, we need about $3,000 to $5,000 compared to someone who wants to dig down a borehole. So you got to look at a community. Are they nomadic in nature? Are they passing by a certain place on a continuous basis. So you build a shallow well that could probably serve for the next 3 to 5 years. Because a borehole is a fixed entity that serves thousands of individuals in a bigger scale. So you do your data analysis, you find out exactly what is the need in that particular area. Then you go out and you seek the money for it. The biggest problem is that many organizations want to have as much money as they could because they don't want to run out of funds.
Mm.
But if I prioritize my programs and I specifically design every penny that comes in, the stakeholders are going to say, hey, you're doing a great job with your program. Then the donor, which loves transparency, by the way, they're going to say, well, I'm so glad that you stretched my dollar to a point where people are no longer thirsty in that area or they are dying because of lack of water. Girls are now staying at home to study. The boys are able to stay at home and help their parents after school. They don't have to go a distance to fetch water again. And I continuously use the word water because you would be amazed when by the time you and I turn the knob to the left and to the right and this crystal clear liquid gushes out of the faucets, you and I are rejoicing. And then all of a sudden we forget about it. But the people who go fetch water, it's a daunting task. And so you have to know exactly what needs to be done. So when I frame it that way, funds will come.
Yes.
You understand what I'm trying to say?
100%. And I spent time in Jebel Marra in Sudan, in villages there, and I've seen firsthand exactly what you're describing. You know, young 10, 11, 12-year-old girls with huge pails of water walking miles and miles up a mountain, quite literally up a mountain.
True. The same thing happened in Ethiopia. You'll be amazed how far ladies go up that mountain carrying a jerry can, the yellow jerry can. And if it falls off, then they have to come down again. And it's a nightmare. So, yeah, it's heartbreaking for sure.
You mentioned then something that I think is really interesting because, again, everyone looks at the world through their own lens, and mine's a marketing lens. And you mentioned something I think is really interesting, which is that donors like to see transparency. And as a donor, I very much fall into that camp. I want to see where my dollar goes and how well you stretch it. Do you feel, this isn't a loaded question, so feel free to answer as however you like. Do you feel that smaller niched organizations are better at being able to stretch funds than larger, maybe semi-governmental entities or larger NGOs?
Politics aside, I oftentimes feel certain decisions that have been made lately, I think it made smaller organizations work harder. And it made bigger organizations realize that maybe we are engaged in wasteful resources. So let me frame that in a way that probably laymen can understand. When you have a smaller organization, they know exactly what needs to be done because they're specialized. It's a smaller tool that you can sandwich between two entities and unscrew something that needs to come out or they're screwed back in. But then when you have this huge machine, you don't know what to do with it, right? Unless you want to break down a huge mountain. So keep in mind the cost. Keep in mind the staff that you need. Keep in mind how often are you going to use that big behemoth in order to accomplish what you need done. So to answer your question, Aziz, the biggest problem that faces bigger organizations is that they have too much to do. But then once the resources diminish, they stop the work. So in the midst of digging down a borehole, if funds stopped because of, I don't know, corruption, prices changed, US ID got, demolished, well, guess what? That village got stopped. But then when you have a smaller organization that has a following from sincere donors, meaning money is flowing in all the time, but then they can also free time to go get grants if they wanted to, if they really truly impress projects on the grant providers, then they have actually accomplished their mission. And so you look at it from both ways. You need a big organization to dig a borehole, but a lot of work goes behind the scene in order to get that borehole accomplished. Again, programs. And then you have a smaller organization that's willing to get in anywhere because it's agile and gets the work done in a faster, and in my opinion, sometimes better ways, right? And therefore, the donor sees that and says, hey, take my money. But the bigger organizations have to go back and convince the big grant providers in order to receive that fund. So it cuts both ways, I guess.
I think that's a really interesting way of looking at it. I think every, as you're describing it, it feels to me like every charity starts with the same mission to help. And then the larger they get, the more distant the individuals within that charity may become from that mission. And so stopping a project is more like a task that has to be done, as opposed to, a smaller organization who have, let's say less donations, less donors, but are very close to the community that they're impacting. That cuts deeper if they have to stop a project, right?
The other problem also with bigger organizations is that they have to follow certain standards, either governmental standards, or it could be just policies and procedures. But when it comes to smaller organization, they take the time to do their due diligence to find out a way to get that work done locally. They may scrounge up some local resources, which sometimes come out cheaper. But a bigger organization has to follow a certain standard. So they have to pay a certain wages, right, in order to get the grants that they were seeking to begin with. But when you and I give a donation to a certain smaller organization, they are very conscious. They are very alert, as in the resources may be minuscule, but how can we stretch it to put a smile on the beneficiaries and to comfort the hearts of the donors?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Same. I guess same in almost all industries, right? The smaller organizations have to squeeze harder. They have to squeeze their resources harder.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You've had quite a few sort of strategic roles, big strategic roles, and I want to take a bit of a step up and kind of just ask you, for the people who just don't know, the world's filled with issues, filled with problems. What are the metrics or the levers that you use to prioritize projects?
I think it goes back to the basics. Aziz, if you don't visit the ground, if you don't put, quote unquote, for lack of a better words, boots on the grounds, and listen to that community, you will never know what is their need. Their need could not be water, but they need electricity for their kids to study at night. Could you devise a way to get windmills? Could you devise a way to get solar panels? So now that becomes your concentrated efforts and a niche program to provide that services. I believe the word providing such services is what's actually need to be done. So you look at all these problems in the world, you're not going to be able to solve them. But you go to a specific place where they actually need that specific problem solved. And that cannot happen, Aziz, if you actually do not speak to the people who need that service. And that will have to be by visiting these areas that are underprivileged, or they may contact you through your website. And of course, as you know, there is a lot of people who just ask for everything and anything. But once you weed through all of that and you focus down on a certain niche, on a certain need, then you will be successful. But to answer your question, you got to go visit. You got to see what exactly they need.
If you were to, and I know that the range of NGO types is really vast, so this may be an unfair question, but let's just say from your experience, what is one thing NGOs spend too much time on and one thing they don't put enough time into?
I'm speaking to a marketing person.
Yes.
I think a lot of NGOs are looking for flashy advertisement. They spend unnecessary resources to be in front of your face, social media wise, marketing wise, They care more about their branding than actually the work that needs to reach the beneficiaries. I know, Aziz, oftentimes you get a lot of requests. And oftentimes when I see someone that reaches out to you, all what they want is they want you to make them known, famous. For what? To bring more money. But you will be surprised as in how often other organizations who don't necessarily focus too much on marketing and branding, they're actually doing the work. So when I spend more money trying to be flashy, what is that going to do to me? It's going to make me famous. It's going to bring me probably a lot of money and a lot of resources. But am I really telling the true story? Am I really making an impact? And I think oftentimes that's the problem. I'll give you an example. Many organizations, they will partner with someone else. They will come in and their executive staff will literally fly in for a photo op, and then they will fly out. And what are they saying to the world? Look at all the work that we have done. You haven't done anything. You just flew in, spend money to fly in, to take these photo ops, pictures, to post them to your social media and what have you, and you're flying out. What actual tangible work have you done? You see what I'm saying? So that's sometimes what bothers me with many organizations, that they're spending resources in the wrong place.
So I'll give you a real story on that without mentioning the NGO, because that wouldn't be fair.
Okay.
The work that I was doing in Jebel Marra. So actually, the work that we were doing was to go and document. So to document and create marketing collateral for a project. And exactly what you just described happened. So we took an 8-hour car up into Jebel Marra, but you can take a helicopter if you spend $10,000. And the
Sure.
leader of this NGO did spend the $10,000, did come from another country to have those photo ops. And when we did all of the calculations, the money that they paid for us and the money that they paid to have the leadership team come for those photo ops was actually double the amount that was spent on the project itself. And I felt disgusted, actually. And, I won't, it's between me and the one above what we did with that money. But the point is that the other side of that, though, is that I do believe that there is, you said it yourself, that donors want to know that their money is being spent well. They can't all go and fly to the location to see what's happening. So there is some element of simple marketing, which is
Of
just
course.
about, informing your donors. But
Sure.
you mentioned something which I found interesting. I find interesting as you keep saying it. You repeat it a few times. Which is about almost like I don't think you use this term. Happy donors is basically the term that I'm getting. Do you know roughly what percentage of donations are repeat donations versus new donations, or recurring versus? I don't know if you know that, or is that a metric that NGOs tend to measure?
Sure. So in the NGO world, we call it acquisitions and attritions.
Yeah.
For the acquisitions of donors, it's very easy, but then the attrition rate could also be higher. And that works in twofolds. But before let me also give you a personal story. I was in one of these conventions, and one of the executives of a unnamed, well-known organization, it's an NGO. This was in Chicago. He came up to me and he sees my name and I'm representing a certain organization, and he says, well, hi. And then he called my name because it was on a name tag. And then he says, before you say anything, I just want to let you know, we are spending 55 to 60% of every dollar that comes in operations. What's your overhead cost? And I told him at the time it was probably between 12 to 18%. He couldn't believe me because he thought the normal industry expense, it could be that is the range for it, which is, by the way, fine, as long as you're making the beneficiaries happy. But I wonder what would be your attrition rate when your donors truly see that you are spending 60% of their dollar, and sometimes it goes up to 70%, by the way. And you can Google it. There are many American organizations that are domestic organizations spending a lot of percentage or a lot of money on their overhead costs. So when you look at this from a point of view, in America, we have something called the 990. And the 990, because every nonprofit, a 501c3, is a public record organization. So you can look up their what we call 990. So you go to a specific organization, XYZ organization, and you can actually Google their 990. And that tells you exactly what's the percentage of their overhead costs, operations, compared to what they spend on their programs. I mean, to the minutia, you can actually do the math and you can find out exactly the percentage. So this is about attrition and acquisition. But I'm going to ask you a question. Do you know how much money in 2019, 2021, right at the era of COVID? I believe wholeheartedly, with all due respect to my British counterparts, Americans are very generous. So don't think of the American government, USAID or any, just think of how much of us Americans gave to the world in maybe 2020, 2019, 2021. How much do you think American citizens donated? Give me a figure.
Personal donations or through taxation?
A personal donation, and it also could be taxation, because if you donate and you tell your IRS, they take it, but it doesn't matter.
No, I mean from federal government or from individuals.
Oh no, from individuals. That's why I said not government, not USAID, the individuals like you and I, laymen's. Okay. American citizens.
You see, you asked me a math question and my mind goes to math. There's 300 million people. There's probably
320
million. Let's say $1 each. Let's say $100 million. Is that too high? Time for a quick message from this episode's sponsor. On the Impact Lab, we explore how businesses drive real, measurable impact. And that's why I recommend personally MeGuide Consulting. MeGuide is your strategic partner for transformative growth. They've helped entrepreneurs and established companies overcome complex challenges. They offer tailored solutions in areas like digital transformation, financial management, and business operations, combined with deep local expertise as well as global business acumen. If you're ready to achieve enduring success and drive long-term improvements in your business, discover MeGuide Consulting. Visit their website. The link is in the show notes. All right, back to the show.
That's very low compared to, are you ready for it?
Go on.
$484 billion. And that's a B.
$billion?
Yes, sir. Americans are extremely generous. This is something that a lot of people don't know about. We are extremely generous. The causes that Americans engaged in trying to solve through their church, their mosque or synagogue or any other religious entity, or just flat out for humanity's sake, for those who are non-believers, Americans are extremely generous. So when we're talking about $484 billion, right? That is a great acquisition, but once somebody sees your records, you're transparent, they see your programs, your impactful gesture on the world, they will donate. And I think that's the game.
So when it comes to donations, what are like the activities that charities should be focusing on to help drive the most, I'm going to say very specifically, long-term donations, long-term support type donations, recurring donations? What are the activities that they should be focusing on? You've said already, boots on the ground, make sure that the projects are there, but then how do they actually bring in those donations?
Reporting. And that is part of transparency. So when we say transparency in nonprofits, that means every organization has to report on that specific program that they implemented on the ground, an annual report. And it cannot be just fluff. It has to be real numbers. How many people did you serve in a certain region, in a certain sector, based on the program that you implemented? If you're distributing food, how many food items did you distribute? If you're distributing sanitational items in a specific sector, medical equipment, medicine, you gotta have a tangible number, and it has to be real. It cannot be made up, because you will be found out. I mean, obviously, after all, right? Follow the money.
Yeah.
But instead of follow the money, go look at their 990, look at their programs, find out how much they spend. And that includes even your most beloved organization that you're giving to right now. And my advice to any organization, you want to continue to have followers of donors, you want to have larger acquisitions and not attritions, I believe, be real. Get the work done. Yes, advertise. Aziz is there, and he will do his utmost best. And please forgive me, Aziz, I'm not trying to patronize you, but Aziz, when he does any type of marketing for any organization, I know you have a different heart for nonprofits compared to for-profits, but nonetheless, you still are a for-profit organization and you need to make money. You cannot just give everything for free. However, when you advertise with Aziz, for example, of the world, Cush, when you advertise anywhere else, just make sure that you tell your donor, look, we're spending this much money on advertisement as well, because that is going to show up on your 990 anyways. I believe at the end of the day, when you report real numbers, your donors will love you.
Yeah, and also from a pure marketing perspective, it's very, very difficult to market any service or product that isn't effective. So the more
Absolutely.
effective you are, the more dollars that are actually going to, where the rubber hits the road, the easier it is to promote that. And actually, reporting is, it's probably the most effective way. And, it's a part of marketing, right? It's part of just being open and transparent. And I think that whenever we've worked, we're very, very cautious when we work with NGOs because of the experiences that we've had. So we're very, very cautious. We reject the vast majority of charities and NGOs that have ever come to us. But the ones that we do work with are the ones where it's really obvious to us the impact that they have, because they have the collateral to be able to report on that. It kind of makes our job
We also have a saying in America, Aziz, try not to stick your foot in your mouth, right? I don't know how they say it in England, but why would you want to partner with an organization that's going to embarrass you?
Exactly.
Right. It could be a corrupt organization. Later on, they find out that, you're the one who did their advertisement. So you're basically proselytizing something that was never really good to begin with, right?
And you get tarnished with the same brush. And so you're 100%.
You get absolutely 100% correct.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So when you think about the teams that you've worked with in your career, what do you think, can you think of the best team that you worked with personally in your career?
An executive that I worked with.
Yeah.
After the camp was done, we were all in the bus, and I could see in the corner of my eye that he was using a hose to clean a garbage can, right? And he was actually using his hand. He may have put some plastic bag, for the lack of gloves or surgical gloves in the field. And he was cleaning the can. And when he finished and placed it in its place and made the village look nicer, he came in the bus, and the first thing I said, thank you for being so humble. He looked at me and he says, remember why we're doing this. Teams like that are passion driven. Teams like that take ownership. They don't care. And I always wholeheartedly believe in that book by Green, the servant leadership. A leader has to be also, he or she, serving not only the cause, but true servant. And that cannot come without having to be genuinely interested in what you do. If I have a passion to help others, it truly shows. You want to have a team like that with you. When the bus stops on a journey, you don't want the executives just sitting back there and says, go ahead and push. They need to roll up their sleeves, come down and push with you to get that bus out of that mud. And by the time the wheels turn, everyone will be muddy. Your shirt is going to be muddy. Your boots are going to be muddy. Your face is going to be muddy. But all of us are going to be muddy. Not only those who are on a lower entity than the executives, including the executives, will be muddy. I believe a team like that could really make an impact around the world.
Yeah, I love that.
And I have worked with some of those individuals. But then I also work with the opposite, and you could tell from day one, they are not the ones you want to take in a dark alley with you.
I guess you get to meet so many people, you know, just through experience, become a great judge of character quickly, right?
I absolutely have. I could take hours to tell you some of them. And you're one of them, Aziz. Again, I think you're one of those individuals that the moment somebody meets you and sits with you, you have a humble wealth of knowledge, and you don't show it right away. So and I've seen how you deal with your colleagues who are actually your subordinates. So that makes a big difference. And I'm always proud to be aligned with you. Whenever you ask me to do something, I'll do it, inshallah.
Thank you so much, and I feel the
My
same way.
pleasure.
You know very well that it's totally mutual. I
God
don't want
bless
to take
you.
too much time, but I've got just a couple of areas that I want to cover. Do you know if there are any sort of adoptions of AI usage in NGOs at the moment at scale?
Right off the bat, I'd like to say to anyone who's using AI is a tool. It's an innovative tool. If you don't look at your screen and you're a good author, just go ahead and write. If you don't look at your screen and you happen to be a good carpenter, go ahead and carve. At the end of the day, AI is an amazing tool. So a carpenter could look up AI, different shapes and models, and probably models after them. Cut him out on a 3D printer or whatever the case may be, and then model it. That's what AI is all about, right? If you're an amazing author, go ahead, write your book, write your text, write your content, and then tell AI to make it better for you. And especially, hopefully, it'll be more human language than anything else. At the end of the day, I think AI is a tool, but unfortunately, many organizations may, or when they start to use it, especially NGOs, they may not know how to use it at the beginning. But just imagine what AI could do with your data analysis. Imagine what AI could do with your reporting. Imagine what AI could enhance the real life stories once you put them on a text, on a content, on a context, and give it to AI. That story is going to resonate even better with your listeners, even better with your audience, even better with your donors. But it should not be a tool that fakes information, because AI can do that for you. I think, if I'm not mistaken, you once gave an example that you knew someone who wrote an amazing piece, and then when you asked them to explain it to you, they just were dumbfounded. And I wholeheartedly believe that AI can do that for you. And that's what you did at the beginning. You lifted the paper, says, we're not faking this. This is real people talking to one another. Why are we doing that? It's because genuineness, AI cannot provide that for you.
Yeah.
If I sit here and tell you a real story that I've actually witnessed in the field, I'll make you cry. And AI cannot do that, because the emotions, the real raw emotions that I can tell you, AI could never do that. Whatever it takes, they just could never do that for you. Right. So I guess at the end of the day, AI can help you make your numbers correct. AI can help you analyze data from the field. AI can make things much faster. So rather than me having to wait until I come back to the States or maybe go to the office, I could use AI right there, and Pronto could create a model for me where I get to do in the field while I'm in the field. I don't have to wait to go back into the office. I think that's what AI is. And yes, we have been using some of that in some organizations.
Yeah.
I'm not at liberty to mention them because then I have to like sign in blood.
No, I understand. I think you're totally right. I had a podcast with a data lead called Bavik, and he used a great term which I've adopted, which is that he uses AI as his sparring partner.
Oh,
And so, when you're sparring in boxing, it's like is it
yeah,
boxing terminology? If you are sparring someone who's much, much better than you, you don't learn. If you spar someone who's much worse than you don't learn. You have to
yeah,
spar people at the same level as you. And if you use AI as your sparring partner on a foundation of knowledge that you already have, then you can move forward. But if you don't, if you're new to the world or new to whatever industry, marketing or any other industry, and you're using AI as your primary source of information, you fall for this thing that I call the AI trap. And actually, we've got on the impactlab.store soon, maybe by the time this podcast airs, we've got some free training on how not to fall into the AI trap, because
sure.
I think that's probably going to be the quickest way that people will destroy their careers, by relying on AI and not building that foundation of knowledge and experience themselves. I'm going to give two more questions, and I'm gonna set you free.
I mean, also AI is nice for automation, right? I mean,
Yes.
you remember something called autopilot? You still have to have a pilot on board.
Mhm.
You can't just send it like a drone with all of these souls in that plane. You have to have a pilot. But then for the longest duration, it is on autopilot, right? So automation, it helps a lot with automation as well.
100%. And AI, and particularly the amalgamation of AI and robotics is going to change the world. I mean,
Absolutely.
we had the pre-digital age, the digital age, the internet age. We're in the AI age, and we'll soon be in the AI and robotics age. Then we'll have the quantum age, and then who knows? The future is incredibly exciting, but we can only deal with what's in front of us.
All right.
Um, so if someone wants to build a career as an impactful person in a charity, in an NGO, in an organization, where do you think they should start?
I think there is something missing from the world, volunteerism. You have no idea how much America was built on volunteerism. When you look back at the history of the United States, education was voluntarily. A lot of the projects were done in America, they were on a volunteer basis. And there is something that the world could learn from this. I think volunteerism is missing and it needs to come back because of maybe in many places around the world, and I would never dare to call it greed, but need. A person who's in need cannot volunteer. They need to be provided or compensated for their time. And the greatest amount that any volunteer can give is time, which is precious. So when a volunteer, if you're aspiring to get into this career, find a time, an hour a week, to start with that, and find a local organization that you align your passion with and go help. In America, we have the fire department. They'll train you and then you become a volunteer. And you know how many times those who break doors to come in and extinguish a fire, they happen to be volunteers. They run in the middle of the night from their homes, they go to the station, they dress up, and they go. They're not compensated for it. If you love to cook, go find a soup kitchen and volunteer at a church, at a mosque, at a food distribution, at a pantry. So you have to start with volunteer and then align your passion with that organization that provides you that time. Volunteerism is extremely a reward that oftentimes is not being talked about. And once you begin that journey, you'll never look back. The next stage, once you're volunteering, use volunteerism in connecting. Find a certain network, Rodwaan of the world, James of the world, Jane of the world, who works in a full-time in a nonprofit or maybe consult for nonprofits like myself and others. Just reach out to them. LinkedIn, direct email, I never publicize my number. You can text them if you get their number. And I can certainly guarantee you that if people find you that you really truly want to do this, you will get it. There is a misnomer that oh, I want to switch my career into nonprofits. What's the money in that? I will tell you, you may not make money, but when I used to work in corporate America, I am no longer, and this is going to date me, I'm no longer going to bed with my pager strapped to my pajamas, right? I'm no longer strapped to my cell phone on continuous basis because they may need me to go down and fix something. What happens then, your life changes, right? And if anybody, so to answer your question, anyone who's looking for this type of work, start with volunteering, network with people who are in this domain, and reach out to them and make the switch after you learn. And I'm pretty sure they'll train you to be part of this world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that people who take that advice, they will learn very quickly that as soon as they start volunteering, that money isn't the only form of payment. They'll receive something else, which is very difficult to describe. They'll need to do it. All right, last question, Rodwaan. A final bit of a curveball one for you. I want you to take your time to think about this. Can you please describe one moment where you knew this is why I do this job?
This is very personal to me. I mean, as we gave the last box, and what's in a box but a canteen of oil, a bag of flour, some other amenities, sugar and tea and other things. The lady inquired that if she could get 2 boxes. And we always get these requests. And then she followed by saying in Arabic, she said, I said, Ya khala, how long would this box last you? She said 13 days. She was very particular with the number. And then she said something very strange. She said that we are 7 people at my home. And for this box to last 13 days, because when we were given last time, we have to eat 1 meal a day. And so could you please give us 2 boxes? So when you deliver this box and you place it at their if you can call it a home, I mean, it's a makeshift. You place it on their doorsteps. And when that door cracks open, there's like old mattress on the floor. On one corner, there is a mattress that covers all her belongings. On the other corner, there is a warmer with a pipe sticking through the wall, black soot all over it. And in the wintertime, this is where she huddles with the kids to warm themselves. And then out of her generosity, she brings this lukewarm cup of water. We're trained to not drink anything that is not sanitized. But out of respect, you take that, and then she hands you pieces of bread. And then she apologizes. She says, would you please have dinner with us? And of course, our colleagues says, with what? And we're bringing you the food. But in her mind, she wanted to open that box and she wanted to real quick cook what's in it or some of it so she can feed us. Throughout my journey around all of these impoverished lands, war-torn countries, I've always found, Aziz, that the people with less resources are the most generous. I have to convince a lot of people to donate because this is my job as a developer. But I've also found that people with less resources, they always want to give. they always know that because they themselves are in need, they see joy when someone receives even this minuscule of gift from them. That changes me. And so to end, every time I come back to the States for a whole month, I cannot go Aziz grocery shopping. I park the car, I push the cart, and I see this conglomerate of good. And honestly, I can't take it. So I place the cart and I come back home. I just can't. Is it guilt? Yes. I feel guilt that I am privy to all of this resources, this bounty, but many people around the world cannot afford it. And so that's why I love this work. I hope that I'm making an impact in the world through what we do. And I would hope that people who listen to us or watch us, that they really, truly be grateful to what they have. Look around you. What do you have that so many people don't have? I think if you and I open our pantries, in America we call them pantries, we could probably feed 10 people at a drop of a hat. And what bothers me oftentimes is you open the pantry and there is actually spoiled food sometimes. You have to just throw it away because you haven't gotten to it with all the bounties that surround us. Many of us are ungrateful, and we need to be grateful for what we have, simply by seeing how so many people around the world don't have much. So this is why I do, and I love what I'm doing. Thanks for making me emotional.
And me. Rodwaan, you're an amazing man who's dedicated his life for other people, and we're good friends, and you're the kind of person who I'm always proud to have. To be anywhere near my life, frankly. You're a bundle of positivity, wisdom, and knowledge.
Thanks.
And what you do on a day-to-day basis, what you do in one day is more than what most do in a lifetime. And I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us on the Impact Lab podcast. In the show notes is all of the details of the show, all of the links from the Impact Lab, all the training that's available, and sponsor links and everything else that you'll need. And I'll see you on the next episode of the Impact Lab. All right, before you go, just a quick message from me. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it made you think, maybe change your mind on a few things. If you want to reach out to us, my email and all of the links are in the show notes. Please do reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Please, please, please take a moment. Wherever you heard this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. I'd really appreciate it. It really helps get the podcast up and out into other people so that other people can benefit from the work that we're doing. I'd really appreciate it if you took a minute just to do that. I wanted to share with you a couple of things just before we go in the last 30 seconds. The first thing is that the Impact Lab .store is where we have all of our courses. We've got a free course called the AI Trap. It's a free course designed to make sure that AI becomes your superpower and not your crutch. It's for anyone that's using AI and to help you really get an understanding of how to build your own core foundational competencies whilst using AI at the same time. There's also a paid course out there at the moment, which is the Impact Marketing System. This is our flagship course. If you are in marketing, or if you are in business development, or if you've got your own business, you really got to understand the foundations of what makes an impact in marketing and what are the core tenets of things that you need to do. The Impact Marketing System is the system that I have trained for over 10 years to get people from basically very novice marketers to become world-class marketers. And there are people all around the world, thousands of people who have done this course working at massive organizations or running their own very successful businesses, in part because of the things that they've learned through the Impact Marketing System. So please take the time to visit theimpactlab.store. If you're a brand in the GCC and you're looking for a digital marketing agency that'll cut through the noise and make a real impact on your business, then Cush Digital is your man. Go to cush.digital, or you can email the team at contact@cush.digital. Cush is with the C, CUSH.digital. Digital marketing that makes an impact. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Don't forget to leave that review. Thanks a lot. See you at the next episode.